Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. I have a new item on my spreadsheet called Quotes, False Prophecies / Visions. And I've known about this one for a while. I'm excited to finally go over it. It comes from, or I first found it in this book. I'm on archive.org. This is Victims, the LDS Church, and the Mark Hofmann Case by Richard E. Turley Jr., and he is an American historian and genealogist. He was assistant church historian and managing director of the church's public affairs department. So that's who wrote this book. And we were here before for the first item on my spreadsheet, The Vision of the Destruction of America by Anonymous. Right now, there's a lot of people that say that this was Wilford Woodruff because you find it in the Wilford Woodruff Papers website or in his journals, even though, as you can see right here, the account starts out, I blank. Wilford Woodruff just copied it down because he didn't know who the author was. But in the process of time, President Joseph F. Smith, as well as President Joseph Fielding Smith, both said that it was a false prophecy, but it still makes the rounds today. And I only came across these quotes because of this book that we're going to be reading from today. You have some other ones on here, the Yellow Dog Prophecy, which I find very annoying because the church already debunked it in the Ensign. I'm about to move to Missouri, and there's people that are like, well, are you sure you want to do that? Because the Yellow Dog Prophecy, yeah, I'm sure, because it's been debunked. It had to do with a prophecy from Joseph Smith about Jackson County after the Civil War. It doesn't have to do with anything right now. You have this unverified account or vision of George Albert Smith about World War III. There's no one to verify it. We're just taking the person who tells it, their word for it. And then you have this one that you can find in, The Contributor, August 1894. No one to verify it. Don't even know who Charles D. Evans is. Okay, so this one is The Coming of the Great White Chief. You guys, before we get into this, I've noticed in this community, this LDS YouTube podcasting community, especially those channels and accounts that have to do with the Second Coming, there's a substantial number of people that fall for this type of thing. I think it's because people are looking for excitement. They're looking for things that are sensational, things that get the dopamine running in your brain, because, it's all about excitement. Or just people that maybe sometimes it's mental illness, sometimes it's genuine people that just get deceived. But we really shouldn't fall for these things when you have stuff like this that comes from unverified sources and that seem really spectacular. That doesn't mean don't look for signs of the times. It doesn't mean just ignore things, but you have to ground it. You have to ground it in reality. Something, and when it comes to doctrine, something that's authoritative. When you have these weird people pop up, that claim things, or when you have these accounts that just come out of nowhere, and it's not corroborated by church authority, then you should take it with a grain of salt and probably see it for what it is, because they usually turn out just to be false. So first, we're going to read from the Victims book, and then we're going to go to BYU Library, and this is under Native Americans and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the Hal L. Taylor collection. And here it is right here, PDF version. And this is the scan of, whatever copy they got a hold of. Okay, so first, I think it's good if we read this part first. Let me get rid of the search. Okay. In 1945, copies of a typed story began circulating among Latter-day Saints about a great white chief whose people lived in a remote mountain region in southern Mexico and who were described in terms reminiscent of the Book of Mormon. Actually, let me pause right there. I've noticed that there's a lot of good content out there that seems to have the goal of proving that the Book of Mormon is true or giving evidence, which I'm all for that. But the people that consume that, sometimes I wonder if it's like an issue of faith. And that's okay, because faith starts out small and it grows over time. But like, if you don't go through the proper steps, if you don't read the Book of Mormon regularly, if you haven't prayed about it, if you're not a spiritual person, if you're living in a way that's not right, the Spirit's probably not going to testify to you if you're in open rebellion, first of all. And then if you're not doing your due diligence, you probably won't obtain that testimony. And that's more real than trying to find these like little, bits of evidence to prove that the Book of Mormon is true. I think a lot of people fall into that trap. I have my own testimony of the Book of Mormon, and it didn't come from reading a book or listening to a scholar, which I think we need that. But that's not where my testimony came from. And I hope that's not where your testimony is coming from. But I feel like things like this, what we're about to read, taps into that fear or uncertainty or lack of testimony. That's probably another group that, latch on to these kind of things. Okay, continuing. The story asserted that the chief had become the leader of all Indian tribes and nations of the Western Hemisphere and was preparing them to build a great temple in the United States. The author of the story, a member of the church, attributed his information to a Navajo described as a tribal historian. The story was soon denounced by various church leaders. By 1953, however, copies of the story had continued to circulate so widely among church members that Spencer W. Kimball, a member of the Quorum of the 12, who would become church president in 1973, found it necessary to publish an article about it. Excuse me. I'll have to track that down sometime. I wasn't able to do it for this video. Quote, "In spite of the fact that the people have been repeatedly warned by letter through their local church authorities and from pulpit and press, there are still some who persist in spreading the fictional story of the coming of the great white chief." Again, frankly, there are people, you guys, that I feel like they're kind of like drug addicts, and their drug is dopamine. And so they don't care if, their local church authorities have said that it's not true. They're wanting the dopamine. They want the excitement, It's complicated. I could go on about that forever, but okay, continuing. Okay, he wrote, although he attributed the story's prominence to well-meaning people, quote unquote, who had copied and distributed far and wide this fanciful story, he noted that the most evocative elements of the story had been thoroughly investigated and found to be misleading and most elements totally untrue. He concluded the article was expressing hope that further duplication and circulation of this fictional story will cease. Yet, the story continued to circulate, and in 1966, the church issued another statement, this time to local church leaders. Although this story has been repudiated numerous times and found to be untrue in practically all of its major allegations, the statement explained, uninformed persons continue to duplicate and distribute copies of this mythical composition. It is requested, therefore, that members be instructed to refrain from duplicating and distributing copies of this fictional story. Okay, so that's all that we have from this book, and then it goes on to other things. Okay, now let's read the account that BYU has a copy of. I have not read this. I want to do this raw because I'm sure there's going to be some surprises in here. So, all right, let's just do it. The Coming of the Great White Chief. Nakoni Nesba, PhD, graduate of Carlisle and Haskell Indian Universities, is a full-blooded Navajo and is a fully authorized member of his tribe's Chief High Council of 16, holding the position of tribal historian. Dr. Nesba majored in archaeology throughout North, South, and Central America with the Smithsonian and Carnegie institutions. He is also a linguist of considerable ability, speaking some 3 or 4 languages and 27 Indian dialects. During an archaeological expedition to Monte Alban near Oaxaca in southern Mexico in 1935, Mr. Nesba first heard of and came in contact with the Great White Chief and his legendary White Indians, who have since come into exceptional news prominence to the Latter-day Saint people. Subsequently, Mr. Nesba was commissioned as tribal delegate to represent the Navajos, largest tribe of U.S. Indians, in the Great Indian Conventions, which have been held in Michoacan, Mexico, and which have resulted in the complete amalgamation of all Indian tribes and nations of the Western Hemisphere as a united people under the Great White Chief. This is sounding kind of reminiscent of something that's been going on lately. Continuing. So impressive was this Great White Chief, Ichna, mighty and wise one, that he was unanimously elected as chief of all chiefs and their lawgiver and teacher. Under him, they have determined to be and remain a united people by casting aside all enmity, hatred, malice, and bickering, and recognizing the blood brotherhood of their people under one God and one leadership. Oh, okay. Well, we can relate to that, right? Being a Zion people and avoiding hatred and enmity and being united. Okay, this is sounding good. Mr. Nesba has had several extended visits with this Great White Chief and his people, and has found unusual. Now, that's something that gets the dopamine people excited, and has found unusual favor with them in that the mighty and wise one had adopted Nakoni Nesba as his own son in a sacred Indian ritual. Therefore, Nakoni Nesba speaks with authority in telling us the following thrilling story. That's another keyword, thrilling. Story of this Indian movement, which we pass on to you for all it is worth, knowing that many will find therein a pearl of great price. Oh, brother. Okay. Yeah. Whoever wrote this knows their audience. White Indians. The Chickarao Indians are a nation of white or very light-skinned Indians living in the southern part of Old Mexico. Their walled city, ooh, that sounds like the Book of Mormon, must be evidence. Their walled city lies in an almost inaccessible region deep in the south of Mexico, almost to Guatemala. To reach this Shangri-La of the New World, where the white man's civilization has not penetrated due to this complete exclusion, one must go first to the capital city of Oaxaca, state of Oaxaca, then to the ancient ruined city of Mitla. From Mitla, one must resume the journey on horseback and on foot, as there are no traveled roads or highways that lead to this fantastic city. After 5 days of almost continuous climbing, one comes upon some high tableland that opens up into a magnificent valley and transcending beauty. It lies at an elevation of about 12,800 feet. Within this valley is secluded the beautiful walled city of the it's hard to say, Chickarao Indians, where it has remained untouched and unspoiled by the evils of civilization since it was built long before the time of Christ. Okay, so basically, so I guess what we're supposed to believe is that it's almost like a time capsule. These people have been undisturbed by everything else that's been going on. And so maybe, they have some of the ancient traditions, that came with like Lehi and his family, and they've preserved things over time. I think that's where this is going. Their habitation covers an area about 9.5 miles long and about 11 miles wide, or about 100 square miles. At the northern end of the valley, steep rock, some 200 or 300 feet high, form an effective barrier. And here's another thing. I think some people, they'll be like, well, look at all the detail. Look at all the detail here. Like, if this was a fake story, well, I can make up numbers. It's not hard to describe an area and just make up numbers. You guys, let's not be gullible. At the northern end of the valley, steep rock, some 200 or 300 feet high, form an effective barrier, while on the east, west, and south sides, a well-built wall of stone that varies from about 25 feet high completes their protective encirclement with guarded gates, being the only means of entrance and exit. The law of the Chickarouse. Just say it like 5 times. Chickarouse. Okay. Has been that only those who speak the Indian language and in whose veins flow Indian blood shall enter into their dominion, and the white man has been thus far effectively barred, as well as warlike tribes of Indians. All the buildings, homes, and temples, they have temples, are very light or white in color on the inside, on the insides as well as on the outsides, presenting a very attractive appearance, informing a city which approaches perfection in its layout and architectural design. The people are tall and stately in stature, being from 5 feet 8 inches to 6 feet 3 inches in height. Their skin is very light. Their hair is light brown to very black, and their eyes vary from hazel to a deep blue and black. Their clothes are all woven by hand and differ considerably from all the other Indian tribes. Yeah, of course, because this is like a secret Nephite civilization, or like the remnants of the Nephite civilization. What we don't know is that there was a little pocket that survived here in this mystical place. They wear long white robes that reach almost to the ground and fasten down the front with 3 sets of tie strings. A girdle is wrapped around the waist, and the long sleeves are sometimes tied above the elbows with a drawstring. A cow-like hood is worn over the head, and white tanned moccasins cover the feet. Certain symbolic marks, here we go. Certain symbolic marks are placed over the breast, navel, and knee, and on the hood over the forehead. These people regard these symbols as very sacred. These must be Nephites or something. They still have the old traditions that go all the way back to Lehi. Men, women, and children dress alike in these hand-woven white woolen robes, and all of them live a life of simplicity that is very near to perfection in its order and arrangement. One of their laws is that they share everything equally with each other. Okay, so they're living the law of consecration. There it is. All food as well as livestock and fowls are shared equally by everyone. One does not say this is mine and that is yours, but all possess everything together and use it according to their needs. The farmer, for instance, puts whatever he raises into the great storehouse. The wool weaver, the potter maker, and the leather worker do likewise with their products, and they are all made available for common use by all the people as needed. So that's like their version of the bishop's storehouse under the United Order. They have no money and need none for themselves. All commerce with other Indians is carried out by the barter exchange system among themselves. There are no rich nor poor, and everyone shares of the abundance they have. Once when I was presented with a beautiful pair of moccasins, I offered a handful of pesos in return for them, only to be rebuked by the great white chief with the soft-spoken words, "My son, our hills are full of the metal, and we find it useful only for tools and ornaments." Wow, they're just like so much more morally advanced, because this is like 4th Nephi. They are very clean people and have no vices or bad habits, such as the use of tobacco or liquor. They follow the word of wisdom, you guys. They live principally on a vegetarian diet of fruits and melons, even down to the tea, and raw vegetables. And all are very healthy and beautiful in their appearance, walking erect with excellent posture that gives an impression of almost effortless motion or of a gliding movement. Wow, if only we did that, then we would also glide as we move. They are very devout and pray several times during the day and night, each prayer being very sincere. They follow the belief that I am my brother's keeper. It's just like the Bible. Should any sickness or injury or sorrow fall upon one of them, Everyone else is ready to do all possible for the unfortunate one, as each person feels that he or she should be responsible for each other's welfare and happiness. No ill feeling is evident for such conditions. No ill feeling is evident, for such conditions exist among them all. They are very happy and know not greed or hatred or malice or scorn, because their substance, their welfare, and their happiness are shared. Theirs is the perfect life. Okay, the next section is the legend. This mode of living has been with them for many generations, just as the firm tradition and beliefs have been handed down from generation to generation that they should live this way. Yeah, they got it straight from Lehi and then Nephi and so on. Many, many years ago, according to their belief, as many as there are stars in the sky, a great event happened to their ancestors living in this valley. The legend reveals that there was a great storm. Okay. Wow, this is just like 3rd Nephi. The legend reveals that there was a great storm with fearful earthquakes and thick darkness for several days. Then after the darkness was lifted, a great white god descended to them from heaven. He was draped in a beautiful white robe made from feathers of the Quetzal bird. Their legend indicates that this great being stayed with the people for a short period and taught them. Then, before he departed, he promised them, if they would live faithfully by these laws and abide by his other teachings, someday he would return and live among them again. During rainstorms or heavy wind and hail storms that are attended by darkness, which might remind them of the legendary time when their great white god came to them, the Chickarao people prostrate themselves in prayer upon the earth. They firmly believe that this great white god will return. Each sincerely voices his feelings as to how he would welcome his return among them again and to keep their faith alive. The Quetzal bird is a sacred symbol of him, for they believe that these birds provided the feathers from which the beautiful white robe was made, which the great white god wore when he came to them. Consequently, severe punishment and torture are meted out to anyone killing or harming the Quetzal bird. All right, take that pretty serious. Ancient records. Ooh, okay. They have a set of records written in books made of buckskin, which they have handed down from generation to generation. The records are regarded by them as highly sacred, for they contain the history of their people for many generations prior to the coming of the great white god. They are the one Indian tribe, as far as I know, who possess a set of records originating in BC times. They are written in a language no longer spoken by them except by the mighty and wise one, who learned it from his father as a responsibility handed down. Oh my gosh. Yeah, right. The record keepers and from father. Okay, just like the Book of Mormon, you guys, who learned it from his father as a responsibility handed down from the beginning of their family. They have also followed an unusual custom, which has become a fixed law with them for generations and which has resulted in their population remaining limited to its present number of about 8,000. This custom or law requires that a woman bear only one child every 7 years. Hence, the birth and death rate remained about on an even balance, and they have not spread from the limits of their walled city with their own culture and customs. Okay, Ichna, the mighty and wise one. The Chickarao Indians are presided over by a great white chief called Ichna, meaning the mighty and wise one. This title has been held by this chieftain and his fathers before him for many generations. You guys, it's just like how after Nephi, the king, the king would have his name would be Nephi, like it was a title. Okay. Ichna is now a man of about 90 years of age, However, in his bearing and the vigor of his appearance, he looks to be a man of about 45. You guys, this is a magical city, and it must be because of their strict observance of the word of wisdom. He is 6 feet 3 inches tall and weighs about 250 pounds. He walks very erect and with such ease that he seems to float along. Well, that's to be expected, rather than plod along as most men of his age do. Well, that's a common characteristic of the entire people, so I guess it's not a surprise. He has a very commanding figure, and one immediately senses in him deep spiritual qualities that make him a man of mighty majesty amidst thousands, yes, millions of his worshipful followers who look to him for guidance and leadership. When he speaks, the people know that it is not from him or not from his mind that he speaks, but it is what the Great Spirit whispers into the mind that he speaks. And one instinctively desires to obey his words. The great amalgamation of Indians. All right. In May 1938, Ichna, chief of the white Chickasaw Indians, called his runners to the great council house and told them to deliver a special message to the Indian tribes nearby and to have them in turn deliver it and relay it as far as a bird flies to the north and south until all tribes had received it. So I guess this isn't a new idea, you guys. What's going on nowadays? It's not a new idea. His runners then took his message to the chiefs of the nearby tribes and told them that at the beginning of 1939, they, the chiefs, were to send representatives to a great Indian conference to be held at Lake Michoacan. Each chief, in turn, was to send runners to the tribes beyond them until the message had reached all the tribes throughout the hemisphere. The response to his message was tremendous when the conference was held in April 1939. Government officials of Old Mexico estimated that more than 130,000 Indians representing every tribe on the continent had gathered at Lake Michoacan to attend this mighty conference at the request of the Great White Chief. After 1 week of meeting together, during which goodwill was firmly established among them, the Great White Chief invited them to return in 1940 during the same season. Accordingly, in 1940, a similar large number of Indian delegates from all the tribes on the continent responded, and this time by unanimous vote. By unanimous vote, they determined to merge into one great nation with Ichna, the mighty and wise one, in great esteem, and all of them would look to him for guidance and leadership. Wow. A gathering of all these tribes, and then unanimously, he became the leader. That's interesting. Once each year since then, he has called the great annual conference where he has presided over them and has taught them of his ways and his laws for more righteous living. The Indian delegates take his teachings back to their tribes where they endeavor to live up to them and teach them to their brothers. So this is like their general conference, This is, these are the presumably Lamanites. I mean, they could be Nephites, but here you have the descendants of Lehi, and they're basically having a parallel church, like with their own general conference. This is so amazing that this was discovered. A great welfare program. During this time, a great welfare plan has been put into effect involving the storing of foods, grain, vegetables, fish, meats, etc. There's been a great activity among all the tribes in the land with the dehydration of food supplies and storing them away in concealed places. Until now, they have been sufficient. Durable food supplies to last them from 5 to 7 years. Tribes with a surplus of any commodities have exchanged or shared them with other tribes who have a storage or surplus until all their supplies have become well balanced and well distributed among them all. This has been done under well organized leadership, which has involved authority to predominate tribes in all geographical centers. The leadership in South America, for instance, has been given to Quito and tribes under Chief Ichka Nab, while all of Central America goes to the responsibility of the Quiches under Chief Chichi Suma, who, incidentally, is second in power to Ichna himself. Mexico is presided over by the Great White Chief, and all the U.S. Indians are under the Navajos, with the Chief Lone Tree as their head, while all Canadian and Northwestern Indians come under the leadership of the Sioux. They have Chief Black Pony at the head. You guys, let's just hold on before we continue. If you were living back then in like 1945 and this was in circulation, or even in the 60s, wouldn't you think that it would be like suspicious that nobody who knew, Native Americans like could verify this story? In other words, like say that you live, near a reservation or you're friends with natives. Wouldn't you think that somebody would confirm this story and be like, oh yeah, we're under Chief Lone Tree because, we're in the U.S. Like, it's like common sense. If there was something this big going on, it wouldn't just be like hearsay. It wouldn't just be on like a little printout like what we're reading right here. This would be making news. It'd be making like world news if all the Native Americans had come together like this. It'd be world news. It wouldn't be done in secret. Oh gosh. Okay. Let's finish this off. A mighty migration to build a temple. All right. During the Great Conference, because we know, you guys, from the Book of Mormon, that we're going to assist the Lamanites with building the temple in Independence, Missouri, where I'm about to live. Okay. During the Great Conference in 1940 at Lake Michoacan, the mighty and wise one advised all the Indian delegates that the time had come, according to the voice of the Great Spirit, for them to build a magnificent temple to his name in fulfillment of the promise and tradition that had been handed down by them, that the Indians should do this thing. He showed them the plans for this great and beautiful structure, which when completed would cover as much ground as a Salt Lake City block. Wow. 5 great quarries were selected in Mexico, Central America, in the northern part of South America, and some 20,000 Indians went to work cutting and polishing beautiful stones for this purpose. One quarry is in the northern part of Colombia near Salada, another at Estacionia Maria de Honduras, another at Chiantla, Guatemala, a fourth at Outlan, Hidalgo, Mexico, and the 5th at Tabasco, Jalpa, Mexico. All the stone is of white marble. Sounds just like our temples, pretty much. But every quarry cuts a separate and distinct size of the finest specifications. Special keystones are also cut and shaped somewhat like dumbbells, which interlock each stone above and below and to the sides with neighboring stones like a chain, so that even a strong earthquake could not dislodge them. At several places in Old Mexico at the present time, Indian people of various nations are hand polishing woodwork for the interior trim of this great temple, while in other parts of Mexico and Central America, other Indians are polishing precious stones such as jasper, malachite, turquoise, and forming therewith beautiful inlaid work of beautiful and intricate geometric designs to be used for the interior adornment of the temple. All preliminary work that can be done is rapidly nearing completion. Ooh, exciting. And the finished materials are sent off to the seashore for the shipment by water to the temple site. The Great Migration. Plans for the migration are now being revealed and will involve the movement of tens of thousands of Indians from Mexico, Central, and South America to their promised temple site. To take care of this migration, so they're all coming to the New Jerusalem. That's what this is. I've read the Book of Mormon. I know what they're doing. They're living the word of wisdom. They have the special symbols. They have temples. They have united all the Lamanites. And now they're going to build the temple in Independence, Missouri. Okay, so to take care of this migration, great preparations have been made, which involve the careful selection of special campsites where the great stores of food have been secreted. Indian tribes along the route have made extensive preparations to assist their brethren in this great migration and are ready to offer them whatever aid they need. It is planned that all Indians involved in the migration will first gather at their great meeting place at Lake Michoacan. They will leave in 2 large groups about 50 days apart. The first group numbering, good thing that Trump wasn't around at that time. The first group numbering as many as the stars in the heaven, well, that's a lot, will journey many days to the north until they come to the east-west flowing river, the Rio Grande, which they will cross, and they will journey many days toward the rising sun until they come to the mighty river that flows from the north to the south. Is that the Missouri River? They're going, or the Mississippi, maybe? They are going to go up this river until they come to a special stone, which will indicate to them where they are to build the temple. And there they will stop and commence the shipping of their supplies and materials to this location. Upon the arrival of the second group at the Rio Grande of the Pan American Highway at Laredo, Texas, they are to go to the west not many days until they will find a range of mountains where only the morning sun shall strike. They shall follow this to the north many, many days until they meet with other white people who do not speak their language. Oh, okay, so they're coming to Salt Lake City, but whom they will recognize by certain marks, signs, and symbols. And the two shall amalgamate together. Okay, so you have the gathering of all the Native American tribes, and then this group is coming to get us in Salt Lake City, and we're going to recognize them by the secret things. After they shall travel together many, many days toward the rising sun. Going east now from Salt Lake City to Missouri. After they shall travel together many, many days toward the rising sun, where they shall find their brethren. Oh, and there they shall assist them, in building the great temple and the beautiful city within all. Later, as time goes on, other bodies of Indians will arrive at this spot, and addition after addition will be erected in the city. The entire city, homes, and public buildings will be built of stone, polished wood, etc. Furnishings will be transported by barges and ships from the quarries before mentioned. At the last great Indian conference at Lake Michoacan, the great white chief repeated his strong prediction again. What the water has taken from the land has taken from the water. What man has taken from man, each by the command of the Great Spirit shall come back to its own. What the water has taken from the land has taken from the water. What man has taken from man, so like the Europeans that have come to the United States, that must be what that is. So what the Europeans have taken from the Native Americans, by the command of the Great Spirit, shall come back to the Native Americans. That's what's going on there. By this he meant that By this he meant that all things shall revert and be restored to their original status as God first designed, in a great reproduction of all things. He repeated this statement on several occasions, and at the last conference he spoke of the years that go by fast by saying, another milestone has passed. There is so much to do with little time in which to accomplish it. Exciting, you guys, dopamine. The subject of sacred markings in script. Okay, the subject of sacred markings in script, referred to by Carl Wood, says, Nesba said, he knows that what these symbols mean. That is the same symbols as our church. Exciting, you guys. The white Indians live their religion. We don't. Mr. Nesba is a member of our church and also a member of the White Indian Church. Not a problem. They're the same church. You guys, I figured it out. This is the same church and has been through their temples and also our temples. Obtained from Sister Louise Brinton, Monument Park, 10th Ward, Salt Lake City, Utah. That's a great source. Okay, so yeah, false. It is now 2025, and this was all just a bunch of nonsense. I would like to meet the person that wrote this, but it seems like it's getting recycled, possibly, or maybe it's just coincidence what's been going on recently, but parts of this feel like they're kind of being recycled right now. I don't know. Maybe this time it's the real deal. I guess we'll see. But yeah, this is my newest addition to quotes, false prophecies / visions. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.